The story I'm going to tell tonight is the story of Pele that some of you are familiar with and a lot of you are not. So let's talk about Pele. Pele, the volcano goddess. What a lot of people don't realize is that Pele in these islands, first she stopped at Lohiau, and then she stopped on Kauai and searched all over Kauai, went further all throughout all the islands till she finally found her home on Big Island and in the crater of Kilauea. And that's where she resides still, okay? Every once in a while she gets up and takes a walk, but for the most part she lives inside the crater there. Well, this story goes back a long, long way, long before Captain Cook, a long time ago. And there was a time when Pele had been quiet for a while because she was sleeping deeply. She wasn't active. So she was in a very deep sleep over there on the Big Island. And in her deep sleep, she heard a sound. And it kind of bothered her, but she didn't want to wake up. So she sent her spirit out to find out what was going on. And her spirit rose up out of the volcano and was listening and listening, didn't know where this music, it was so good, it was so, made you want to dance. But she finally rose up high in the sky and realized it came from the direction of Kauai. So she let her spirit follow the music all over through the air until she came over the island of Kauai, and she looked down from her spirit body and down, and she could see that there was a big festival going on. The festival was going on at a place on this island called Ke'e, at the end of the road, where, as some of you know, there is still the remains of a hula temple. And the upper part near the cliff is where this was. And there was a large gathering there. And there were people dancing. Well, that was nice. Pele loved dancing. Her younger sister, Hi'iaka, had taught her how to dance. And that's one of the nice things about the story. Hi'iaka had a human friend who taught the goddess how to dance. It's one of the rare stories in the whole world where the humans taught the gods something. Okay? Anyway, Pele's looking down and admiring the dancers, not thinking much of it until a young man got up to dance. A young man who was a chief, an ali'i, a man who was very handsome and very graceful and very strong, and his name was Lohiau. And when Pele saw him, she says, "Hey, I got to have some of that." Okay? Pele was like that, you know. So she came down, and there's some forest around that area, so she went into where no one could see her, and she condensed her spirit into a human form. And at some point, she waited until there was a break. Now, the way this platform is way up here with a beautiful view of the ocean, and you enter it on this pathway coming up this way. And so she waited off of the path until there was a pause in the dancing. And then she got on the path, walked up the path, and came out from the woods onto the hula platform. And everyone was totally stunned because she was extraordinarily beautiful. And the drummers started drumming, and the chanters began chanting, and Pele danced the most beautiful dance anyone had ever seen. Well, Lohiau instantly fell in love with her, which is her intention in the first place. So she danced, and then Lohiau danced. Men and women did not dance together, okay, in the old days. But they would dance in turn when there was a party. Okay? And so he danced, and he danced a love dance for her, and then she danced a love dance for him, and then everybody was having a wonderful time. And finally, at the end of the dancing, why Lohiau and Pele found themselves alone, and Lohiau says, "Look, you're really beautiful, but I can feel your power." He says, I would love to make love to you, but you got to tell me, please tell me you're not a spirit woman. And Pele gave him her most seductive smile and said, "Of course not." Okay? And so they went off to Lohiau's hut, and they made mad, passionate love. And Lohiau wanted to marry her. But his sister, who was like a wizard, a magician. Her name was Kilioe. And she was very jealous of this because Pele seemed to have a lot of power over her brother. And this was important at a time when if Kilioe had power, then she could direct events on Kauai and have the influence, political influence through her brother. And this may or may not mean anything. Lohiau was handsome and he was strong, but in the dictionary, his name means retarded, okay? But anyway, so there, he's really just full of love for Pele, and Kilioe sees Pele getting a stronger and stronger influence, and so she decides to challenge because she has magic, and she was a mo'o priestess. Mo'o means dragon in the way it can mean lizard, but in that case it meant dragon. So she was a dragon wizard, and so she challenged Pele, and what she challenged Pele at was the power over wind, because Kilioe was very good at that. And in those days, Hawaiians had hundreds of names for winds, and it took a real master to know all the names of all the different winds. And on this island, this single island of Kauai, in one single valley called Wainiha, that you pass when you're heading toward the end of the road, there are 65 names for winds in that valley, single valley. So there were hundreds of names. It's one thing to know the name, however. Pele could do more than that. So they sat, and first Kilioe chanted all the names of winds, and knew them all and named them all, and that was wonderful. Then Pele began to chant. But every time Pele chanted the name of a wind, that wind would come up. And so she's chanting the names of all the winds around Kauai, and the wind would blow up and blow a canoe off course, and would almost turn one over in another place. And each time she chanted the wind would blow. So she had that kind of a power, and she knew all the winds of Kauai, and there was winds blowing all over the island, even winds out of season, because Pele was a master of winds. So she could not just name them and recognize them, she could cause them to come up and to blow and have an influence. So she won the contest. Okay? And then everything went on fine for a while until Pele finally, okay, this guy's handsome, but he is a little retarded. Not quite my type, although we have fun together. So she felt her body calling, was stirring, wanted to wake up all the way back on Big Island. And so one night, Pele left. And Pele left, and when Lohiau got up the next morning, where is she, where is she, where is she? He realized it was not a real woman, it was a spirit woman. But he still loved her with all of his heart and had a completely broken heart. And so he committed suicide. And so when he his body was taken to up the cliffs of that mountain at the end of the road, and it was buried in a cave. And everybody was in mourning. And the sister Kilioe was such mourning that she turned to a stone that can still be found on the beach. If you walk past the path and you walk on the stones on the beach, there's a large rock full of mana, and that's Kilioe. And so because that stone is there, we know the story is true. At another time, we'll continue this story, okay? But that's bringing it to the end for this evening.